Okay, testing, testing. Alright, so I'm gonna set up my stuff real quick. So we're gonna switch to my normal form. I'm gonna put a disclaimer for the stream. It's not gonna be very interactive because I'm going to basically just be going through an analysis in PowerPoint that I've had. And I've had this PowerPoint for about a month. And I tried making a video recording of this and I just kept fumbling it. So I'm just gonna raw dog it on a stream or something instead. So, anyways, let me pull up everything real quick. We're gonna make a new source. Okay, we're gonna make PowerPoint. That is not what I want. I want a specific window. Okay, I'm gonna close this window. So maybe that might work. And then I'm gonna add it. Yeah. Maybe maybe I will turn this stream into a properly edited video if I well, for whatever reason. So let's get the Chrome up. There you go. Beautiful. Oh my god. If everything just worked out for me. Let's go. Okay, let's see if we can we're just gonna have like we're gonna do it like this, and we're just gonna there you go. And then let's see if I can start from the beginning. I'm just hoping it doesn't. Oh no, I don't want to share it, bro. I want to do a slideshow. Bro, don't dox me like that. Okay. Well, I guess we're full screening this, and let me check YouTube on my phone before I start anything. And I'm gonna wait a few more minutes just in case if we got anybody else, because I know I just started the stream, so we gotta give people some grace. And I just want to see how it looks on my end of the stream here. Okay, that isn't too bad. It does kind of crop out some of the stuff. So we're gonna get rid of Froggy. Okay, we're gonna put smaller Froggy on here. Give me a second. Sorry, Frog. Bye. You've been banned to the Shadow Realmed Frog. So let's add Tiny Frog instead. Let's see if I have like Bouncy Frog. Yes. There we go. We got Bouncy Frog. And then we're gonna move chat. We're gonna see where chat is. We're gonna no. I don't want PowerPoint to move. Where's chat? Okay, where's chat box? I'm gonna move you. We're gonna move chat box to the side. Oh, okay. Gonna move chat to over here. All right. If you guys type anything, it's gonna pop up over on the side instead. All right. So I am going to pull up this. Oh my gosh! I don't have slides on my phone. Well, I'm gonna download slides on my phone really quick, guys, and pull up my notes on that because I don't want to spoil anything. So if you guys want to just yap and like tell me how you guys are doing before I start the stream where I don't talk to you guys for a solid 15-20 minutes. So it's how y'all doing? Okay, we're downloading slides. All right. I have so many apps on my phone. Jeez. All right. Fandango, bro. I want that gone. I need to upgrade my phone, honestly. It's I have the iPhone 10X, and yeah. Yeah, it's whatever. It's whatever. So 3 people were on the stream here for a second. It's not like this stream really matters too much to me, just because it's just gonna be like a video essay kind of thing, rather than my proper stream where I interact with everybody. I still want to. All my phones are hand me downs from my mom. Oh, fair. That's fair. Better butter cubic. Um, Honestly, that was for me for a while. I think this one was a hand me down as well. Um, so I kind of get that. That's kind of real. I do need to get a new phone, but I'm probably gonna have to look for like a refurbished phone or something on eBay or whatever, something like that. I need to upgrade though, because I can't even download certain apps because my phone is just outdated, and it just kind of, it's a stinker like that, if you know what I mean. Um all right, sign in with another account. What account am I using? Okay, I'm using this one. Cool. Um okay, hopefully it doesn't freak out when I'm trying to pull up the slides here, cuz I know. Oh. Oh, I see what it's doing. Okay. Okay, I pulled up the slides. I think I can start the recording. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna open the slideshow here, and we're gonna start it now. All right. So this is my character analysis for character within Apothecary Diaries. The huge disclaimer: there's gonna be spoilers for Apothecary Diaries if you haven't watched it. If you don't really care about it, then um yeah, then feel free to watch this. But if you do care about spoilers, hop off the stream like right now. Um Hold on, let me see what you're saying before I do any more. Oh my goodness. To be fair, this stream is literally just gonna be like just me. It's just gonna be me because nobody wants spoilers. Anyways, oh yeah, so this is a character analysis for a character that I like in Apothecary Diaries. I guess I should do a proper introduction if I want to make this into a YouTube video. So I'll do this really quick. Um, this video is gonna be about, or this video stream/stream is gonna be about a character from Apothecary Diaries, and there's gonna be heavy spoilers. So if y'all don't want to get spoiled, I recommend not watching the stream or video. But anyways, gonna continue. Hold on, I just got pinged in something. Hold on. Okay, sorry. I have to do something. I can't start this properly. Oh my god. Give me a second. Oh my gosh. I have to do something. I'm sorry, guys. Oh, my bad. Um Okay, you know what? I'm gonna handle that later. That's a later me problem. We're gonna start the video analysis now. Okay. Proper introduction. Character from Apothecary Diaries, and she's an antagonist character. This video slash stream is gonna be about how our character's a trans allegory, and also how these two, the main character Mao Mao, the apothecary, and Suire have character parallels to each other. They're literally foils. All right. Okay, I did it. I started the introduction. There you go. I did it. Okay, let's go with the. So first of all, before I continue any further, I do not tolerate any intolerance towards the trans LGBT community or just any like I don't mess with that phobia, guys. No hate towards any minorities or marginalized groups. There will be spoilers in this video slash stream. Everything will be characterized by season, so you can pause and come back and watch a certain season. Or well, if you're in the stream, you can't pause. Unfortunate, and I guess you're just gonna have to get spoiled. Joking. I really highly recommend you just like saving this stream for like later because everything will be archived to my lives. But this will be I will be putting it into a recording. I will be editing things out. This video I will be going through the anime and manga. I've yet to do a deep dive on the light novel. That's because I need to go read through it again before I do. And occasionally I will be mentioning the light novel from sections that I do remember. Anyways, so, and now to the trigger warnings. There'll be topics such as animal experimentation, abuse slash child abuse, death, and the big word mentioned right there. You see it on the screen. You know what it is. All right. So to get on to, we're going to start with the trans allegory, and then the second part will be about the parallels between the two characters, Mao Mao and Suire. So we're going to just start going through the chronological order of Season 1, Season 2, GX slash light novel mentions, and light novel territory. So, alright, so starting with Season 1, Suire debuts in Episode 13, and in the manga, it's chapter 22, and GX manga, it's 14. But I'm gonna be mainly focusing on the anime because that's where most people are familiar with Apothecary Diaries, though I highly recommend checking out both the manga and also the light novel as you get an interesting, like, perspective. You get the Mao Mao's internal dialogue you get more of her dialogue from the light novel, but for the GX and main manga, it's a little less, but you still get her internal dialogue, and it's still interesting to see stuff. But we're still missing a lot of like context when you watch the anime, in my opinion. All right, so when we're introduced to Suire as a character, she's kind of this like so Mao Mao was transferred from the rear palace to the outer court instead, and she is now like she basically gets approached by a bunch of these court ladies who are kind of like all egotistical and also like harassing Mao Mao and stuff like that. But there's this one court lady who is just kind of standing there in the background and doesn't really do anything about doesn't help Mao Mao, but also doesn't like do anything about anything. And this is our introduction to Suire as a character. And the one time she does speak up, Mao Mao does mention something very interesting about this character. And Mao Mao comments in the light novels her lack of makeup. And also same in the manga here, as you can see. But Rose like, whoa! You could use some makeup. This is like the most like Chinese thing, is just to say something so blatantly rude, but it's just pointing something out. I kind of love it. But Mao Mao only really says that just because she thinks like, wow, you could be more beautiful if you actually tried. But yeah, but Mao Mao basically says like she would thrive in the rear palace if she like did a better job with her makeup. But something interesting about her Suire's debut is that it's mostly like implied, but they don't really explicitly point out the character until she steps into frame. I'm reading my notes right now, and I'm not sure what I tried typing out. I think it was like just like her appearance and stuff like that. So one of the things is like what Mao Mao notices is that Suire is particularly tall compared to all the court ladies. Also, just a fun fact: when I read I found a portion from the web novel, and apparently Suere is about like 5'5", 5'6" tall, and I'm like, dang, I'm literally her height. Anyways, but to I know to a lot of people in the West, that's like they're like that's short, bro. No, 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 no. Mao Mao is almost like 5'2" or something, or 5 foot, I think. So Suire being like 5'5" or 5'6" is like kind of strangely tall for like um Chinese women. And for me, yeah, it is strange. I'm kind of strangely tall for being like a Chinese femme person. I'm not like a reminder to everyone that I'm gender fluid, okay? Anyways, but I just remember reading that in the finding a web not portion of the web novel and finding out that information. So that's kind of cool to know that my favorite character is about the same height as me. Anyways, going to continuing on, we're kind of getting more into like a lot more spoilery stuff here. Um, so we're still in season 1. So this is now we're on episode 18 and episode 20. So one of the things is Suere, we later like find out that she was behind a bunch of the conspiracies and a bunch of like the people who have died. She caused like she basically assassinated a bunch of people, but like make it look like accidents. It was kind of a whole mastermind kind of thing. It's insane. But I'm gonna start this off with, to me, for Suire, her character, like, this is kind of where you kind of see more of the trans allegory, the symbolism for this character, like the queer coding behind this character, is after this point. You don't really see it as much in the beginning, but there are a lot of hints. More so towards the character's androgyny and things like that. Like I mentioned, how tall she is, or the lack of makeup, and the certain like things that she does, her behaviors. Um, but for this, she literally fakes her death. She drinks a poison, then she comes back to life. So for actual context, like the actual plot, she makes an anesthetic that she basically takes an anesthetic, knocks herself out, then wakes up again later. So it's like the death and the revival there. But to me, it was kind of very obvious that she faked her death. Her faking her death is a very metaphorical death of perception. So what I mean by this is the perception of Suire as a court lady, or like this strange cold woman who died, is literal. But for some trans folks, there's a saying of like burying your old self, or that perception of what people had of you, and then reviving, or the literal rebirth of your true self, or the real you coming out. I don't have too much to say about this, as I took this as like a very literal and parallel to like to like many trans folks experiences. Obviously this isn't like every trans person's experience of like dying and rebirth, but it's like it's the experience of leaving that old perception of you behind, or burying it, and then and I'm talking about like transitioning fully. um I think something that's interesting about Suire as a character starts to shift from this point on, and you'll understand more what I mean when I get to season 2 about this character, and why I'm saying like this character is like a trans allegory, because you're gonna be like, okay, she faked her death, so how does that mean she's trans, or this or that? But once again, this whole PowerPoint is just my interpretation of a character, and obviously I do not think that the intentions of the author of Apothecary Diaries, the creator of the light novels, intended this character to be trans. However, there are a lot of many implications and subtlety, like in her writing, that is implying that this character is at least queer. And I'm just gonna say that. Anyways, but yeah, so after this point, we kind of start to see the curtain pulled back for this character. So I'm gonna go back to season one. So when we get introduced to her character, she's kind of cold, and also she does things like she hits Mao Mao to get her attention. The second time we see her again, as well as like Mao Mao is like, wow, she fucking hates me or something. Pardon my language, guys. I didn't mean to drop that, but Mao Mao's like, she hates me, and um and it's just it's interesting because we get this what even my one of my have my brother and I have my dad at, we're having my dad watch the anime, and he mentioned that this character is just kind of like creepy, or like, well, she's supposed to be like creepy, cold, mysterious, and all these sorts of things. But after she fakes her death, we start to see something shift in this character, when it comes to our perception of the character. All right, so season two spoilers. There's a lot of spoilery images here, but starting with season two now, basically she returns back as a eunuch, and under the alias of Tian, and for going back to season, like, back to when she faked her death, and then like it's very literal for me of her like basically dying as a court lady but then coming back as a eunuch, or like her true self. And she wears masculine clothing, like male attire, from here on out. Actually, she has always been wearing male attire, since like the beginning of like season one, and I'm going to show you in a second and what I mean by that. But this character is just kind of, in my opinion, I think she's more apathetic to what pronouns you use or how you perceive her gender wise, but she does wear men's attire and takes on a more masculine role, from here on out, which I think is really interesting. I think, for myself, I perceive this character as transmasc, though, I know some other people would perceive her as trans femme, etc., and I don't. It doesn't matter. She's queer and trans. Like, that's all you need to know about this character. But another thing that's interesting is the humanization of this character after she comes out, basically, like coming out of the closet, bro, burying your old self and then reviving, and then the revival is you're seeing more of, like I said, the curtains are being pulled back. So one of the things that we first get is when Suire kidnaps Mao Mao with Shishui, we learn that she is sisters or half sisters with Shishui. And another detail is that, Suire, we also see her have an intense phobia of snakes. I know for a lot of people it kind of broke the, well, this character's aura farming is now like kind of cringe now. She's no longer aura farming because she had a panic attack because of a snake. But there's a good reason for why she has an intense phobia of snakes. It's actually really sad. But we get to see more of her for who she is. And then another thing, well, actually, a friend mentioned this, is that he said that he really likes Suire and Kyo's brother sister kind of clan familiar bond there. That she cares about people, and that's something that we just never really saw with like season one. We just thought she's just some antagonist who's just kind of, let me just kill people. But Suire does care about people, and Mao Mao may not think this. And it's very clear within the light novel that Mao Mao mentioned, like, Mao Mao does think Suire is just this cold, like, emotionless person. But I think it's funny because she's not. They're literally, Mao Mao and Suire are literal parallels of each other. Mao Mao would be like, I don't have feelings and emotions. Bro has feelings and emotions, and then she projects this onto Suire, like, bro does not have feelings and emotions. And I just think that's really interesting. Just a little side tangent. But continuing on, so some other little details is just like mentions of androgyny from Mao Mao. Mao Mao just mentions things like Suire is a bit too tall for a woman, or she has a very um androgynous voice, or like not a too high pitch or low pitch voice, it's just in the middle. And then also mentions things like Suire wearing men's attire. And it's just a lot of little things like that that I've noticed. Mao Mao meant like she every time she interacts with Suire, she has to say something about the way this character is just not gender non-conforming to some degree. So like and so we're gonna go a little bit of just some observations from manga, GX manga, etc. um and so actually with the funny meme image that I made, the line text above the characters here is an actual quote from the light novel, where Mao Mao says this person with her was Suire. This is at the end of light novel 4. Perhaps she was dressed in male attire because she became used to it, or perhaps she had some other reason. And I just think that's so interesting, that she just says, like, you either are used to wearing men's clothes, or there's some other reason here. Gay? Trans? Queer? Anyways, and another fact is that this isn't the only time she has dressed in men's attire, because like I mentioned in the beginning of season 1, so if I go back to like here, um I say her debut is 13. However, her actual debut in the show is episode 9 at the end, where we see her purposely tampering with some guy's alcoholic drink, putting a sugar in it or something like that. It was sugar or salt. It was something like that, where that this guy dies from like um over like alcohol poisoning. So, but we get to see her dressed as, she's literally dressed as a man doing this shenanigans. Um but yeah, so there we go. I think the next part is my Suire Mao Mao analysis, but before I get into that, I am going to touch upon the trope that this character kind of fulfills when it comes to Chinese media. I know Apothecary Diaries is an anime that was written by a Japanese woman, and all sorts of things. However, that she was heavily inspired by Chinese history as well as Chinese media. And a lot of things that I notice in a lot of Chinese media is this trope where heroines or female characters in general cross dress as men to fulfill some sort of goal. And normally this goal would be like, or it would be some sort of mission goal, or something relating to freedom, because and what I'm talking about is like in Donghua, in C dramas in Donghua, that a lot of times there'll be not all of them, but there are some that are in setting in ancient China and stuff like that, and women just didn't have the freedoms that they, obviously have today. So they would have to dress as men, cross dress as men to be able to have those freedoms. But there is in my opinion, I think there is like a distinguishing factor between a queer character who is, obviously queer, and a character who just cross dresses. Suire is a character that I think is queer. I perceive her as queer, rather than a character who's cross dressing for a means to an end. However, her cross dressing does come up like often, and I don't think it's I'm not gonna say, like, I think there is another reason, like in this quote here that Mao Mao says she probably had some other reason, because she doesn't have to keep cross-dressing after the end of season 2, but she continues to do so in the light novel. Actually, she does it for 3+ years after the events of season 2. And I'm only saying that like because we're now on like light novel 16 or 15. Like, well, I last read 15. She reappeared in light novel 15, and she is still wearing men's attire and stuff like that. Mama's like, And I think it's so funny. But so my whole point behind this is that I think her character, even though she fulfills this trope, I think she elevates this trope and also kind of spins it on its head basically, and just kind of like in my opinion, I really like what this creator does with this character and how she handles this trope of the character. And I really like that there is more of an exploration of a character's queerness, despite it all being just very subtle throughout the series. Um, and that's what I'm gonna say, because I have watched some C dramas and dongwas where there are characters who do cross dress, but the characters are still cis. The characters aren't queer. They're not trans. They're still cis, and there are just differences. I think the only show or like donghua that I've watched that has come close to maybe being like slightly queer for the character is Cinderella Chef. And the main protagonist is she cross dresses as a man so she can own a business, own a restaurant basically. It's a I could make a whole video about Cinderella Chef and its insanity actually, but I'm not gonna do that right now. But that's the only time I can really think about, like, or any depictions of, honestly, I'd say Mulan, like the original Mulan ballad, and there are some films that I think that also but I mean, to be fair, Mulan in my opinion is like the OG trope, like the trope runner, like the forerunner of this trope. But but I mean, it's not that the trope is bad, it's just that it can come across as like so like there's a lot of like baggage around this trope in my opinion. Like I think a lot of it is like um it of course is very like I could get into things like saying it's very male centered or this or that, or just like the erasure of like the feminine identity, but I'm not really gonna get into that. I feel like that's a lot more out of like what I'm like experienced with talking about. um but if anyone has like their own thoughts or opinions on that, they can you can talk about it if you want, but I'm just gonna leave it there. Anyways, so I guess I'm gonna get into the Suire Mao Mao character analysis now. So there are heavy spoilers for the series overall. Not like I just spoiled everything with the Suire stuff, but this has more plot that is relating to Mao Mao rather than Suire. Though Suire as a character, she is a big part of the plot too. And actually, this is probably why we never see merchandise of her, is because she's one of those characters that just spoils the entire show if you were to show her. Like, the only time you can show her to not spoil the entire show is this iteration of her, and that's not showing the true self of her character. Like, if like I would love merchandise of her, any, honestly, actually, I don't any form of her. I'd gobble up that merchandise immediately. But I know, like, if you were to have any merch of her, like in any of her other attire, it would be an entire spoiler. So, but I also think, like, when you're watching the anime, it really should be obvious that she's a eunuch. However, I think there are still some people who never really guessed it was her, even though the show has hinted multiple times, like, she's gonna come back, she's gonna come back, and then when she comes back, people are like, this eunuch. I love. There's this theory that I heard. Somebody's like, this eunuch still has his balls, and I'm just like, that's actually no, that's wrong. But I'll let you live in that fantasy. No, the eunuch, in fact, does not have balls. The eunuch is actually um AFAB. Anyways, okay, so we're gonna go into the Suire Mamo analysis. I feel like I should check up on you guys in the chat, so I'm gonna do that real quick. Um, the aura has been limited completely. Then again, phobias are any kind. Okay, sorry, I'm reading chat right now. Phobias of any kind can limit you. Sure, you can get over it, but a part of you be much as can be as much as you as some people wouldn't want. Yeah. I get you. All right. Okay, I'm gonna dive into the character analysis between the two. Um, so kind of like unlike, I'm just gonna read out what I have here. I'll just be diving into like similarities and differences between the characters. And this will be separated into topics rather than chronological order of the season. Um, but yeah, I guess to conclude the Suire trans allegory and just her, she's just a queer character. If not, if she's not trans, she's at least queer. And there's just a lot of things that are just kind of subtle in the series that you can really interpret her character as queer, in that sense, and or gender conforming. But anyways, going back to this, here's the different categories that I have for the similarities between Mao Mao and Suire is that, like, they're both apothecaries, they have a very common interest. They have something in common, such as scars from experiments or from abuse. They both have mommy issues. I'm not really gonna get into that topic too much because I didn't really make a slide for this. And their true identities, as well as their adoption, being adoptives, being adoptees from like having and their similarities of adoptive guardians, and also their perceived aloofness. I already talked a little bit about their perceived aloofness within like the trans allegory, but I'll still go back into it. So I guess I have to check notes for this one, as I put check notes on here. So we're gonna pull up the notes, I guess. Alright, so position in society. I don't think I made this a category per se, but so one of the things that I think is interesting is just like yeah, so I mentioned here in my notes saying season 1, Mao Mao mostly comments on like in the manga slash like light novel, while in the anime it's inferred to the audience that Suire is different from the other court ladies who are shown harassing Mao Mao. But I just think it's funny how the GX manga, Mao Mao mentions how this court lady is so calm, but also wondering if she's going to step in. So this is like, I absolutely love this detail. I just think it's so funny. How like both of these characters kind of work like they both know where their position is in society. However, I think one of them is a little bit more aggressive with how they go through. Like Suire still exploits. I think Suire exploits the society that they live in, and Mao Mao just kind of tries to live like not really be noticed. And I think that's more of like differences between the two, but they still need to flow within society. And I know that's kind of like ambiguous, but in my notes I put the parallel between them is they both know their place in quote unquote, but navigate as minimally as possible. But I do feel like Suire is more on the extreme side compared to Mao Mao, making more moves than Mao Mao. Mao Mao is more of a indifferent protagonist, or like a protagonist where just things just kind of happen and Mao Mao gets thrown into it. While Suire is one of those characters who makes those moves, who makes those actions. So you kind of see a character that has inaction, and the character that takes action. But yeah, but I mean, both Mao Mao and Suire find exploits to get things done, such as Mao Mao's connections with Jinshi, and for Suire, it's doing whatever the hell she wants. That is literally something that is pointed out in the GX manga, that Suire is just like, I'm just gonna. Mao Mao's like, oh, what are you planting here? And they're like in this like herb garden or something, and like Mao Mao's like, are you even allowed to plant here? And Suire's like, I just do whatever I want. And Mao Mao's just sitting there like, wow. And I think that's that is something that is different about these two characters. And you know, anyways, we're gonna continue to the next thing. Another thing that I think is funny is their perceived aloofness of these characters. So one of the things is that both Mao Mao and Suire don't really show interest towards those who have interest in them. Obviously, Mao Mao has more development over time with Jinshi, which does which do differentiate the two characters. Both of the characters are very outwardly cold, but they both genuinely care about people, and it shows more through their actions than their words. So they don't say like, just because they're not able to like show that like care through words doesn't mean they can't show it through how their actions. Both of the characters have a sense of strong justice and responsibility, and I love that I noticed this within later like season 2. This is more in the more, you see this more in the light novel slash manga, but it's also in the anime too in season 2. So both the characters have a sense of responsibility that I find interesting. They feel obligated to do certain things. For Mao Mao, it seems like her strong sense of justice when it comes to in form of being interested. So it's in the form of her being interested in solving mysteries, though relating to anything relating to medicine, of course. But she still gets interested in any of the mysteries that Jinshi kind of throws at her, or like Gao Xuan. For Suirei, on the other hand, it seems more like a responsibility for her actions. So she feels a sense of responsibility for her actions. You see this more so after she kidnaps Mao Mao and brings her to the village, but she feels bad that Mao Mao has to deal with Shen Mei now. It wasn't Suirei's intention for Shen Mei to find Mao Mao, and she does everything in her power to minimize any harm that is done towards Mao Mao, which is her sense of responsibility and also justice. It's one of those things where she doesn't want someone she brought in to face the same amount of abuse that she has. Oh yeah, we're getting into the abuse of Suire soon. I didn't talk about that in the trans allegory because I feel like it would be a lot to unpack. So I'd rather unpack it with this portion instead. So anyways, so here's like a literal quote of the two from the manga where Mao Mao says something. She basically calls Shen Mei an old hag, and then she gets beat the crap out of her. So I think this quote is hilarious because he's like, she bought it and she brought it upon herself, bought and paid for. I love this line so much. But anyways, so now she was like, but then Mao Mao's like, but then there was another idiot just like Mao Mao, and it's Suire who speaks up for um for Mao Mao, because her Lady Shen Mei was like, we're gonna send this apothecary to the water chamber in freezing cold degrees. Mao Mao would die. Mao Mao would literally die. That is a horrible fate for anybody. Shen Mei is like a really abusive character, and she's also just kind of like, I'm gonna get into her character. I will get into her character eventually. But anyways, so then, so for this specific context, yeah, so then Suire speaks up for Mao Mao and is like, we're gonna need another apothecary, but she only says this more so because she wants to defend Mao Mao, but she chooses her words carefully. No matter how careful her words are, though, she still gets beat the crap out by Shen Mei, and it makes me sad. Anyways, so bonus portion, it's not canon. It's probably not canon, but I like to think they had this interaction. I just wanted to bring this up. This is kind of out of nowhere. This is out of pocket. Where Suire checks on Mao Mao and basically tells her that she doesn't have to actually make the youth restoration medicine, because when Mao Mao was found by Shen Mei, Shishui slash Lolin made a lie that like Mao Mao was here to help with a youth medicine, a youth elixir or something like that, and Mao Mao's actually like 30 or 40 years old or something like that, and just looks young because she did experiments. But anyways, so Suire was the one of the few people, I think the one person or one of the few people who were allowed to check up on Mao Mao and stuff like that, make sure to like give her food and things like that, and they weren't really allowed to have a lot of interactions, but I do think there are like they're silly cartoons and stuff that I don't think are canon, but try to explore the characters more interesting, because even with these other explorations, I still think Suirei would try to put effort into showing that she cares for, or like the sense of responsibility and slash care of Mao Mao. To like saying things like, "Oh, you don't have to actually make that. You don't actually have to do that. Just pretend." um, and I know in the anime she kind of somewhat does this a little bit, but yeah. So Mao Mao was like, "I'm down for the challenge anyways. It doesn't matter." um, okay, so now we're gonna move on to their adoptive guardians. This is something that they also have very similar thing with them. Is just like both Mao Mao and Suire have adoptive figures in their lives who have passed down their knowledge of apothecary. Also, both of their teachers have studied abroad, which I thought was very interesting. Um, and they're like, for I think both of them, they're both like grandpa figures or something like that. For Suire, I think it was the court physician, but it may have been some other character. I think it was some other character, because the court physician and that other character are two separate characters in the light novel, I believe. But I'm not going to get too much into that. So we're going to move on to their scars and experiments. So we're kind of getting more into like the abuse territory and stuff like that, and talking about that stuff. But one of the things is that Mao Mao, she does experiments on herself and this and that. So her arm is like, her left arm is all like janked up and stuff like that. And I think it's interesting how, like, in here in the manga that I show right here, now this is how Mao Mao gets these girly pops to stop harassing her, but but Suire just stares like, bro, like, you fool, I see right past you. Mama's like, I'm being abused. Um, that's why Jinshi took me in. Me. And Suire just sees right past her, because he's like, right, right. But I also think that, so before I get into it, Suire, um, so she also has scars. But they don't show up until season 2. Personally, I think these scars have always been here. I like to have a headcanon that she put makeup over her scars, but um, but to be fair, it could they all could just be new ones, because Shenmei just like loves to use her as our punching bag. So, um, anyways, so there's actually like the clip here that you're seeing, the small gif here, is actually from one of the cartoons that is from their Twitter. The Twitter slash YouTube, the Apothecary Diaries YouTube is slash Twitter. And one of the interactions, like, they had like a short cartoon after every episode that came out, and it was just kind of like a funny commentary or just a fun fact little thing. And I do not personally think these are canon interactions. I think these are just for fun. However, it does kind of make me think maybe Suire also did experiments on herself too, like Mao Mao. So going back from this, like Mao Mao always kind of uses her scars as a, oh, I was being abused, to leverage kind of way. Well, I think it's interesting how the fan base of Apothecary Diaries, when these episodes were coming out, people were thinking, oh, is Suire like also doing experiments, or is Suire faking these scars or something, or was she genuinely abused? And the correct answer is that she was genuinely abused, and it's really sad. But I think there's a little bit of a parallel there between Mao Mao and Suire. Well, Suire was genuinely abused while Mao Mao wasn't, but it's funny how it's like kind of flipped when it comes to like what people think, like, oh, the people think Suire is putting on these cosmetic scars for the effect. However, these are genuine scars. And also, like, the little cartoon, it implies that Suire also did experiments on herself, but I don't know if this is canon or not, so I'm not gonna say too much into it. So they kind of cut this part out of the anime, but it's really interesting. It's like I'm going back to like the commonalities between Suire and Mao Mao of like their interest in apothecary. So they cut this out, and it kind of made me a little upset, but it's fine. It's whatever. It's in the manga here, but it's also in the light novel. But her Suire like it does care about apothecary, but it may not be to the same extent as Mao Mao does, as her interest is more so born from the purposes of survival and benefit of others, while Mao Mao is pure enjoyment of the craft. Um, so she's kind of like, you can see here in these images, like Mama asks her like what if she likes medicinal herbs, and then Swears like, yeah, it's whatever. But I mean, Swear still asks Mao Mao thing like how good are you of an apothecary? Anyways, um, and then I don't have any slides for Suire and Mao Mao's like shared mother issues. Suire's mom died because Shenmei beat the crap out of her until she died, and then Mao Mao's mom had syphilis. so they just have I think they just kind of have like unspoken mom trauma. For Suire, it's like your mom got beaten to death by your stepmom, who's like, well, I guess it would be, yeah, I think, is it yeah, it's stepmom, yeah, who beat her biological mother. And then for Mao Mao, her trauma is her mom had syphilis and like mentally spiraled and even chopped off her like Mao Mao's pinky finger when she was a baby. No, these girly pops need therapy. Oh my god. Anyways, um so that's the analysis. Mao Mao and Suir have a lot of parallels between each other as characters, and there's also things that I didn't include, such as like Shishui being like, "Wow, you two are like really good friends," and they both tell her to like shut up, and I think it's just so cute and silly. Not telling Shishui to shut up, but I think it's cute and silly how Shishui's like, "You two are seeming like good friends." um, but I think it's also that one scene though itself from the manga anime all across is just kind of, it's a little sad though that what Shishui says, and this could be a whole other, like, if I really wanted to do the biggest deep dive, I could have also made a portion where I talk about Shishui and Suire as siblings, as well as like the Doom sibling pair. But I also think, for that, I just want to go on a little side tangent really quick. Let me pull up. You know what? We're gonna just grab a new slide just so I can like chuck in that frame really quick, because I actually think it's so important for me to talk about this, in a video that's like about Apothecary Diaries. So let me grab that real quick here. And I mean, I know I used this image before here. Actually, I used it right here. But Shishui's like, "I'm glad you guys are getting along." and these two are like, hello. But it's more so because Shishui's kind of looking out for her sister Suire. She cares about her sister. She loves her sister so much, and she just wants her to have. She's like, "I want you to have." Actually, one of the things is like, "You two don't have many friends," which I think is really funny that she says to them. And they're both like, "Bruh, bruh, why'd you say that to me?" Oh, by the way, here's an image from the manga of Suire being regretful of having Kyoyo being brought with them because Shenmei existence is pain and suffering. So, oh yeah, if you're wondering, you're like, who the hell is Shenmei? Why have you been talking about this like Voldemort-like character this entire time? Well, I'm about to jump scare you guys. These are like uncropped screenshots, but this is Shenmei here. Um, she she's like the most diabolical character ever. Um, yeah, and she does a WWE SmackDown on Suire all the time. Also another thing is that I know I mentioned Suire's phobia of snakes, and the reason why she has a phobia of snakes is because Shenmei used to punish her by throwing her into a pit full of venomous snakes. Snakes, frogs, and like insects and stuff like that. So Suire has an intense fear of snakes, insects, and frogs because of this woman. So this woman is horrible, like genuinely horrible. Um but yeah, also like we would um another thing I didn't really add, I think, to the trans allegory is there's this one scene where it's like more humanization of her character. She tries to make jokes. They don't really land, but I think it's really cute that she tries to make jokes though to show that she's like more relaxed. And Mama's like, did she just try to make a joke there? Um, but in the anime, it's kind of glossed over, while in the light novel and manga, it's touched upon more. So just another interesting tidbit there. Um, and trying to think if I'm covering all my bases here for anything that I missed, but yeah, yippee, my sillies, yay! Anyways, I am crazy about Suire, and I could talk, I could go furthermore into depth of her character and how she's so interesting. But I guess to end off with anything, I know I mentioned how some people weren't really happy with her character. So I know for some people they really would, if I'm gonna go back to like touching upon like the parallels between and Mao Mao and Suire, I think one of the things that people really were upset about is that Suire wasn't really this big bad antagonist to Mao Mao. It wasn't this like genius who was a foil, but rather this underling of this evil woman instead. And for me personally, I love Suire's character and how she was written, because for me she's a very clear queer character. First of all, she's also an abuse, like I know some people didn't like that it was revealed that she was like an abuse victim, but I it makes a lot of sense for her character, as she's a character that doesn't have direction. She does what she's told, um and follows it to a T. And then if I made I this is why I'm kind of kicking myself right now that I didn't make a third part where I talk about like Suire and Shishui as sisters, because there's a parallel, like there's a contrast between the two, as Shishui is a character who takes initiative. However, she gambles on everything. She lays things to chance, while like Suire doesn't leave things to chance. However, she doesn't take initiative on things. She does things that she knows is a matter of fact. And I just think that's so interesting between the two characters. And then the end of season 2. I'm gonna pop off. I don't care. I'm gonna pop off. This is my live stream / video, so I don't care. I do whatever I want. So at the end of at the end of season 2, um, like, okay, so at the end of season 2, there's so Shishui / Lowland basically pulls all the cards. Um, and I don't have any screenshots of this, and I'm mad at myself. I'm kicking myself. But she pulled all the cards basically. So this is major spoilers for the ending. I know I went through a lot of spoilers already through the series, but this is like major spoilers. So I'm gonna pull up an image of like I'm gonna whatever, I'm just gonna pull up an image of so you guys can just look at Shishui, the three sillies. So what happens is the reason why Suire kidnaps Mao Mao is more so actually because of Shishui's plan. And one of the reasons, so there's multiple reasons, but I think one of the reasons was to actually make sure the war not the war, but more specifically the inaction of Jinshi taking because the two knew if they took Mao Mao and her connections with Jinshi, as well as like her father being the strategist and stuff, they were gonna have fucking fire under their butts. Like they were gonna have fire under their butts because of the fact that what happened was the army would come after their clan. They would be cooked, and they did this on purpose. And I know some people are like, "Why would they do this? This is so stupid." Of them, did they know that Malma's? Yes, they knew this. They knew this would happen because they wanted to take down Shen Mei. It was a masterful. It was a literal masterful plan of like them being like, "We're gonna kidnap this person to literally fasten, like, speed up the wartime," because and then anyways, so then with Shen Mei on the other hand, so one of the things is their father Shisho collected all the corruption. Everything is all in one place now, which I think if you watched the anime you would have figured that out. But then another thing, for Shishui's plan to work, for the characters to get away scot-free with like not being sent to death, so I don't even. So one of the things was, so there was multiple aspects. She was betting on Jinshi to listen to her first of all. So when I don't have the screenshot of her, but she has like this. She got she got the Glock, and she'd be aiming it at. She'd be like, "Oh, you want to listen to me, silly, haha." But also, she was betting on things like Jinshi being able to listen to her and not taking the gun. But if he used it, it would have backfired on him. And that would have been bad. But then there was another thing where if so she was betting on that. She was betting on Jinshi listening to her. She was also betting on Suire's resurrection medicine working for the children. And then the third thing that she was betting on was Mao Mao to stay with those children to make sure that they, when they do revive, they are able to stay alive. And then, all these other things. Insert all the other things that she was betting on. She was literally gambling, and she won the jackpot. And she won it again because Mao Mao gave her the hairpin to put in her, like, her collar to, which then deflects a whole bullet. Anyways, I'm not even gonna get into that. Like she literally won the jackpot of chance and gambling. And I think for Suire, for seeing her character in that end scene of season 2 is just kind of like, it kind of put me in distraught because there's a realization that she has, like, her, like, this plan that my sister has is so wildly stupid because it's not concrete. It's not, you don't have a definitive answer of would this work because you are betting you're betting everything. You're putting everything to chance. And that's something that Suire just couldn't fathom as a character. And I just and she's a character who's doesn't take initiative, but when she is set to do a task, she makes sure it's done. Like it's clear. And I think it's just so interesting of like the two characters. Anyways. Okay. I rambled this long enough, and I'm sorry. And I think I'm done. I think I'm done ranting about these characters, ranting and raving, because I just have so much to talk about this series, and specifically, like, these, I would say Suire, Mao Mao, and Shishui are the three characters that I'm, like, insanely crazy about. And I would love to go into, like, deep dives about other characters, but I just think these three characters have a lot of symbolism going for them. They have a lot of things going on, like, just things that are just very interesting about the characters and, like, subtextual. Doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. I just think it's just really interesting character writing, and I love seeing the complexities between characters and the differences and the similarities, and I just think it's so cool. And then I love Suire as a character because she's such a subtly written, like, to me she's queer, but it was very subtle in how she's written. And and don't get me started. Like Shishui and Lolan is insanely well written. Is an insanely well written character. Um, and I know for a lot of people, when season two came out, like Shishui slash Lolan became a instant top favorite for a lot of people. Because her writing is so complex and it's so intriguing. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of my rant for this show. There is literally no other way of me making this analysis without me popping off because of how much I love Apothecary Diaries. Like I love these characters, and I do still need to to read the light novels from like light novel 6 and onwards. I think I stopped at light novel 5 just because I think Suire just she leaves the picture for a while. We don't see her until like light novel 15, and I was just like, my favorite's not here, why do I keep reading? But I think one of the things is that I'm just really happy that she kind of like she gets her life spared. Sure, she's kind of like under house arrest for the rest of her life, but I think that that's honestly the best thing for her. I would rather have her like living under house arrest, and it's not that she's under house arrest. She Edwo, the concert. So I'm actually gonna pull up the image real quick. Um, she's there. Trust. She's there. She's right there. She's the purple hair right there. But she adopts all the children as well as Suire and basically gives them a good home. And I think one of the things that I just love is that Edwo like that Suire isn't another that she isn't another parent to help with the children. She herself has never really been given a proper childhood, and I think I find it so like heartwarming that she's given this chance. She's basically like um a child with no mother, and Edwo is a mother with no child, kind of, and it's like kind of that found family. And this is something we start to see from season 2 onwards whenever we see Suire and Edwo again. And it's just something that I find so heartwarming. And I mean, I know I could talk about like Edwo as well as the other character. I'm trying to remember her name. Lady Lishu. I think those two characters are also very interesting when it comes to like the parent child kind of um dynamic. And for Lady Lishu and Edwo, it's more of like a younger child and adult and parent, while for Suere it's more of a an older child with an adult, if that makes sense. Like a troubled child. And that's and like I said, there's so much I could talk about with Suere's character. And I see her as an abuse victim who gets a second chance, like, to recover. And it's something that I find that's so important though too in storytelling. Like, I as much as it'd be like, well, it would be cool if she was just some like fantastic villain who had all like if she was some villain who was just so insanely smart and this and that, whatever. I I think it was like I like that all these characters have a human aspect to them. Like, there's something so human about all these characters in Apothecary Diaries. I actually do not hate any of the characters in Apothecary Diaries, though they do make you love to hate. Well, first of all, the former emperor. We know why we dislike him. But then the second character is Shen Mei. I don't hate Shen Mei. However, I hate her and the fact that she's like, she's a character that it's a love to hate character. So it's like I love her character because she's so just unabashedly bad. She's just evil, and I love that for her. But I also like I hate her because she abuses my favorite character, but she was written to be like that. So but anyways, that's kind of what I have to say about this series. I know I keep rambling on because it's like I have more to say about it, but it's so good. Um, but yeah, and I'm sorry if I drove away any people in the stream, but yeah, so anyways, that's the stream. That's all I have to really talk about. I don't know. It may be really hard for me to like edit this into a video, so I may just like timestamp it for when I start the discussion and go into things, and then just let people just listen to the ramble. But yeah, so that's kind of my video stream essay that I have. Um, and I don't know if you guys like this kind of format or would prefer me to actually like sit down and try and record 2 million times and then just never post a video. But I think I can stick with doing streams like this. I think I can make like video essay like streams where I just talk about things that I'm passionate about. I think if I were to make another video essay stream, it would be about Identity 5 and Helena Adams, Galatea, and Game Zero. If I make a video essay stream like this. Because I think I would need a lot of time to just sit down and just kind of talk about the complexities between the characters as well as like their interactions. I have kind of retired from Identity 5, though I am considering possibly making that like a like a slideshow or stream or something if you guys are interested. If you are interested, I will be making a poll on my channel to like ask if people are interested in that. But for now, I think I'm just gonna like chill. I'm gonna chill. All right. I'm gonna wait until people start talking in the chat again. Um, so the part of me just kind of rambling is done. I just wanted to get all of that out. For anyone who is also interested in Apothecary Diaries, So, and I hope you guys did get something out of my ramble, and you guys feel like you're fulfilled, or at least like you did your dishes while I was rambling about Apothecary Diaries. Like it still makes me happy to know that like you guys are listening or like somewhat having a takeaway or something from what I've had to say. And that's okay if you didn't either. So, to be fair, I like to sit down and just kind of draw and listen to people ramble. So, I get it. All right. I'm going to check my notifications because I didn't realize I was rambling for a whole hour, and I'm so sorry. All right. Whew. I kind of want to get soup today. Real question is, does Lou get soup? Um. All right. Well, I'm gonna exit out of. Well, let's see what other stuff I have. Helena Martha presentation. Oh, I do also have the storm. I never really made this into a proper presentation, I don't think. Oh, it looks like a recent one because I have the recent like stuff. But whatever. I did think about making a video about my storm characters, but I'm gonna get rid of the PowerPoint. We're gonna turn that off. Anyways, so I hope y'all are doing well. I think I'm gonna end the stream here. I'm gonna put the poll on my channel, and if you guys are interested in me making a character analysis about um Identity Five's Game Zero characters, Helena, Ada, Emil, uh, Galatea, and Orpheus, you can say so. I'm mostly going to be going into things objectively for that rather than talking about things. I will be talking more about like the internalized ableism from both Helena and Galatea's characters, as well as like other aspects of the characters, such as like the parallels between Helena and Galatea as disabled characters, and how they are kind of used for like inspiration, like the inspiration fetishization. That's what I'm gonna call it. But yeah, that I think I'll have to sit down and make that. But if you guys are genuinely interested, I would totally do that. I wish I would be able to. I currently do not have the proper technology to make like regular video essays like most people do, because when I try to make a video essay about something, it has to be under like 15 minutes or something on my program, or my program starts combusting when I try to do any more editing than that. So it's unless I decide to invest in a better computer, I don't think I'll be able to make like proper video essays and stuff. Um, and honestly, streams are the only way I can kind of talk about like topics I want to. And if I make videos, it's a lot more of an investment for me to like sit down and make and produce a video that isn't really relating to my art. And I know it's kind of hard for me to like pick my channel back up without videos, but at the same time, um certain audience that I want for my channel kind of would be more for my like stories and stuff. So I kind of have to pick and choose what topics I want to talk about or discuss. And it's just kind of hard to make videos relating to your own projects without like using something like a pre-established media to get people to watch your videos in the first place. So the only way for me to like kind of sit down and like talk about things I'm super passionate about, like such as my favorite media, is like through streams like this, is what I kind of realized. But yeah. All right. I have to do something, but then all right. Well, I have to end the stream here. I really appreciate y'all listening. I'm actually really shocked you guys stuck around for the entire video rant. I don't know how passionate you guys are about Apothecary Diaries, but I'm glad you're here to stick around for it. But that I know some of my Identity 5 followers would probably enjoy the IDV rant if I made that, but then I also know um, there's like two, I'd say there's two other things that I would love to talk about that are just kind of niche out there. I know Apothecary Diaries isn't as niche, but when I talk about Swear Eye specifically, she is more of a niche character. And same for Identity 5. That's more of a niche topic. But I think I'm going to end the stream here, and thanks for watching, y'all. I really appreciate it. And if you I mean, you guys already support me, so like but for anybody who's like looking in the stream post stream, you can support me through like checking out my projects, or subscribing to my Patreon, which is like I only have one tier, the $1 tier of seeing my working in progress work for my project. So yeah. I'm probably not gonna make another tier unless I get more traction on my projects, and then I'll maybe consider doing a tier where I like do give like giveaway stickers or something or whatever. But well, I'll figure something out. Um, but yeah, thanks for watching, y'all. Oh my gosh, the minute I have to leave, I see more people joining the stream. I'm so sorry.